Welcome to A Few Thoughts About, the show where we dig into thinking and how it shapes our experience of life. Each week, I share insights and observations to get you thinking. No long lectures, just quick, thought-provoking episodes to shift perspectives so that you can make the change you want to make. Let's get into it. Well, hey, before we get started, I just wanted to throw it out there again. I have 2 of those 4 spots still open. So if you are interested in one-on-one coaching, even if you just want to find out more, even if you don't really know, check out, there's a link in the description of this podcast. I have 2 spots open and I'm currently doing discovery calls for those spots. So if you've thought like, hey, maybe one-on-one is a direction I want to go, maybe I want to get some coaching, talk to me. It will be a low pressure conversation, and I will make sure that no matter what, getting off this call, you have a great next step. So check out the link. It's in my description. 2 spots of one-on-one coaching left. I'd love to talk to you about it. Let's do the show. Well, hello there, and welcome to A Few Thoughts About the Process, Phase 3, Action. We're finally here, friends. We're finally at the part that everyone wants to do, right? The part that, we go through this process, we want to get to right away, which is actually going through the process of having some alcohol-free time. Now, before I dive into this too deeply, I want to suggest, if you haven't listened to the previous 2 episodes, to Phase 1 Learning and Phase 2 Planning, if you haven't listened to those yet, I highly recommend it. I'm going to be referencing those as we go through, or listen to them out of order. That's fine too, whatever works for you. But just wanted to let you know that this is part of a series that I'm doing on the process of making this change. Now, this is very, very, very high level stuff. I really wanted to give people this super high level overview so that they had an idea of how I see the process and how I see the process being successful. And so we've gone through the process so far. We've gone through the section about learning, about letting yourself drink for a while, about looking around, about really understanding it. We've gone through the section about planning, which is taking all that stuff you're learning in the learning phase and putting it into a plan. And now we're finally at this part where we talk about action, right? Action is when you do the thing you're actually wanting to do. In this case, quit drinking. Now, for some people, this is what they start with, right? And I know for me, this was the case over and over and over and over and over until I learned, right? I started with action. I started by, that's it, today's day 1. And if this has been you, and if you are here just to listen to this, again, a reminder, please go listen to the other 2 episodes because I make a really good case that this is not the place to start. What's interesting about this, right? And what's interesting about this process, especially with alcohol, is we're not talking about a day of doing something. We're talking about a day of not doing something. And it's really important to understand this distinction, right? So it's not like you're trying to do a certain thing all day. What it is you're trying to not do a certain thing. There's a behavior that you have been involved with, that I was involved with for a long time for a whole bunch of reasons, and we're trying to not do that behavior anymore. And seeing it this way can make all the difference, right? Because what we can start to do is we can start to recognize there are going to be emotions or impulses to go in this direction. And we've got a basket of tools. We've got things we can use to get through it. Now, normally in my coaching, what I'll do is we'll put together a whole bunch of ideas, a whole bunch of different tools. But you can do that too, right? So in the planning phase, I was talking about really kind of looking at those triggers, really looking at those precursors, really looking at the ways that you can change the way you feel, because that's what this is all about. So in this episode, what I want to do is I want to talk about tips for going through this process. And I want to give you some ways of thinking about it that can really help you make the most of this alcohol-free break, right? So let's dive right in, right? First and foremost, follow the plan. So if you've been following this process the way I've laid it out, you'll know that there is a learning phase, right? There's a planning phase, and now we're here. Don't let that time go to waste, right? Your time learning was really meant to give you an idea of how you operate, right? How do you think around alcohol? How do you feel around it? And so use it, right? You came up with a plan for triggers. You came up with a plan for precursors, right? Use it. Most importantly, follow the date and duration. I'm going to talk about the duration portion of this later, but just as a refresher, right? I always recommend that people pick a date to quit and a duration to stay alcohol free. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be 3 days, could be a month. Doesn't matter. But follow it. And the duration thing is super important. And again, we'll talk about that more later. So use the plan, right? That's number one. Number two, be ready for other things to pop up. And I don't know if this is apocryphal, but I absolutely love this quote that is attributed to Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? And like what he's talking about, there's actually more to that quote where he actually talks about like, then people freeze, some version of that. But what he's talking about is that we can make all of the plans in the world, but then if something happens we're either not expecting or that's more intense than we were expecting, things can get thrown off. This happens, right? This is life, right? There are these unexpected things we don't see coming, and it's important to have something in place that we can turn to, right? So in the planning phase, we talked about this idea of like getting clear on where you're going to get support, getting clear on who you can talk to, whether it's a coach or a trusted friend or someone who's been through it before, or maybe a group that's working on it. Be clear on where you can go when these things pop up. Right. And you might also be able to you can probably do this right now off the top of your head. Like if you had a really bad day, what are some of the things that you could do to handle it? Right. So maybe it's some time alone or watching Netflix or letting yourself go to bed early or I don't know. There could be a very, very long list, but have some things ready that like you don't really know, they're kind of solutions, but you don't really know what the problem is yet. And that's okay, right? Because these things are going to pop up. But if you have a list of things you can do when you're not feeling the best, this is going to be so super helpful, right? So follow the plan and have stuff ready for things that pop up, right? Those are like the two biggie things to think about as you kind of go through this duration. One of the questions I get a lot is like, how do I make the most out of this duration, right? Like the reality is that going through this, a lot of people feel kind of shaky at first, like those first few days, it feels really weird. It feels really foreign. It feels like it's taking up so much space in our head. And as time goes on, we'll feel more and more confident. So I have a list of things that I like to give people to help them make progress on this goal. And I'm going to give them to you now, actually. Well, some of them at least, because these are really big, important ideas that can help you really get the most out of this alcohol-free duration. And that's the one I'm going to start with, which is this: don't look beyond the duration. This one is huge, right? Like lots of people will say, and I've run into this over and over, they'll say something like, oh, I'm doing a month, but they really mean they're quitting forever. And there's this thought that like maybe we can trick our brains. You can't trick your own brain. Like it's not going to work. And so if you go into something like this thinking, oh, it's just a month, but really it's forever, you're still going to fall into this forever trap. And I spoke about this in the last episode very quickly. The forever trap is where we start thinking like, oh, am I really never going to drink again? Like, am I really not going to do this? Am I really going to end up in a place where, I have no alcohol ever, and I go to parties and I don't drink, and it's this thing we can't even conceive of. And because we've said forever, or because we're thinking forever, it feels too heavy. And so we decide, fuck it, and we end up drinking again, right? So that's the point of the duration. And so during this duration, the goal is to not look beyond it at all. So like if an urge comes up to drink, to be able to say for yourself, well, I've made this decision for now. So as of right now, I'm not drinking for the next X number of days. So that's totally off the table. So what am I doing to relax? When you can say it that way, and when that number of days isn't like 400 days or something that feels ridiculously difficult. When you can do that, you can kind of turn the noise down on that volume in your head a little bit, and it gives you a little bit more brain space to be able to figure out which way you actually want to go. Second, you don't know how you're going to feel until you get there, right? So again, if the thoughts come up like, oh, well, maybe I can have a drink, dry January is something a lot of people do, and they'll think about like, I can't wait till February 1st. Fine. Maybe you'll have it in February 1st. Maybe you won't. But that's when you get to make that decision. Right now, the decision has already been made. And so, again, this is something that kind of allows your brain to have it both ways, right? First, we've got this strict rule, which is I'm not drinking right now. But I've also said that I get to make that decision when I get there. Again, this is another way that we can kind of turn down the noise in your head. So don't look beyond the duration, like avoid that forever trap. And we'll talk about what to do. And actually in the next episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about what to do when you get to the end of your duration. Like, how do you decide? How do you think about that? How do you frame it for yourself? We'll talk about that. But suffice it to say, during the duration, don't start planning outside of it. We'll talk about that in a bit, but focus just on that duration. You can avoid the forever trap, and it really increases your chances of getting through that entire duration alcohol free, right? So that's number one. Number two is allow, don't resist. So this one's big, and we'll be talking on this in more sort of themed episodes soon, but don't resist, right? Things are going to come up. Emotions are going to hit you. Good stuff, bad stuff, stress, anxiety, depression, all of it. The full range of the human experience is going to hit you just like it hits all of us. And I want to encourage you to not resist it. See, for a lot of us, we use alcohol as a method of resisting or avoiding it, right? Like for me, I had so much financial stress when I was drinking, like a tremendous amount. And one of the ways I dealt with the financial stress was I drank to forget it, right? I didn't want to experience the emotions that I was having about it. I didn't want to feel that insecurity. I didn't want to feel that stress or that anxiety. And so I resisted that stress. But here's the thing, right? Like in resisting it, I was causing so much more stress and strain in my life. And so this is one of the things that like I can't emphasize enough. You, and I mean you, if you're listening to this and you're a human, you have everything you need to weather any sort of emotional storm. Like you are able to handle anything that comes up. And I highly recommend that you keep this in mind and that you stop trying to, get emotions to not hit you or trying to deny or trying to somehow not experience them. We do this out of fear. And actually, because for a long time, for a lot of us with drinking, like drinking was how we dealt with that, right? It was how we kind of dealt with that fear. What happens is when we take alcohol away, there is this impulse to run away from it, to resist emotion. I promise you, you're going to be okay. So instead of resisting it, instead of trying to hold it at bay, I suggest that you get curious, right? How does it feel? Wow, I'm feeling really angry right now. What is this experience of anger? Like where does it show up in my body? Where does it show up in my brain? What sort of thoughts am I having? And really just sort of exploring these emotions, because when you do this, you'll begin to realize that you are okay, right? That there's actually nothing to be afraid of. It might be unpleasant, right? It might be something you'd prefer not to experience, but you can weather it. You can move through it. And the reality is that allowing it is so much easier than resisting. Resistance takes so much effort. It's exhausting. But allowing and letting this stuff hit you and experiencing it yourself, it allows you to move through in a way where you start to see that the emotions and the things that we were trying to hide from, while they aren't pleasant, they're certainly something we can manage, and we don't need alcohol to get through them. right? You don't need alcohol to deal with the stuff that comes up. So let that stuff hit you. And again, this is just for the duration, right? If you don't like how this goes at the end of the duration, you can change your mind. Again, more on that later. So that is don't look beyond the duration, allow, don't resist. Next one, and this, by the way, is like a perennial thing. This should be happening all the time, but this is especially true during the duration. Be kind to yourself, right? Like I said, this is one of those like all the time sort of things, but this is triply true during your duration, right? You're going through a transition. You're living life differently than you have. And so, yeah, it will feel big. It'll feel like a lot. You might get tired or cranky or mad or sad. And it's all 100% okay. Be kind to yourself, right? Don't beat yourself up for feeling that way. Like, well, damn, I've wanted to quit drinking for years and all I've been is grumpy for the last 3 days. Okay, fine. That's okay. That's how this goes, right? There isn't a thought you can think or an emotion you can feel that's not okay. And I want to say that again because it is so important. There is not a thought you can think or an emotion you can feel that isn't okay. It's all okay. And even if things get a little bit crazy now, it will calm down. So when you feel these emotions come up, be kind to yourself. Recognize them. Recognize that you're doing something new and novel and different. And take it easy. Give yourself the opportunity to rest. Give yourself the opportunity to take a break. This transition doesn't last forever. And so if you can weather this with kindness to yourself, you're going to go, the entire journey is going to be a lot easier. So finally, the last one, and this one's big as well, is I want to encourage you to look around. It's funny. One of the things that'll happen, I'll talk to you, and I've talked to many, many, many people about changing their relationship with alcohol. Almost always there are 3 or 4 things that are like the big driving reasons, like when I first sit down and talk to them. There's a lot of commonality. Some will be like better relationships or feeling better physically or sleeping better or losing weight is a big one. Enjoying myself more, right? There's going to be a list. And there's a very good chance that every single thing on your list is going to happen, but it might not happen right away. Like losing weight is one that, like, for a lot of people, they really want to do it, but then like they get a month alcohol free and they don't feel like they've lost any weight. Well, the scale tells them they haven't lost any weight, right? What I encourage people to do is, while those sort of things are great, don't have horse blinders on to the rest of the change that happens. One of the things that is so incredibly common is we're like, oh, these 4 things are going to happen. These 4 things are the reason that I'm doing this. I'm going through all of this for these 4 things. And we get so hyper focused on those 4 things that, again, we have horse blinders on to like a whole bunch of other positive, incredible changes that we weren't really paying attention to. So don't fall into that trap, right? Look around. At some of my clients, I'll even have them, I'll ask them, or I'll have them set reminders to ask themselves once in a while, like, what is good around me, right? Like, what feels better? What's an unexpected improvement? And it could be a little tiny thing, right? It could be like, I remember I quit. It was the month of May when I quit. So here in Maine, that's basically still winter. I mean, it's starting to warm up, and I remember very clearly, this particular year we had some beautiful fall weather. And I remember driving to work with my windows down, which I did regularly. And usually that included like a pounding headache and this sense of dread and foreboding that just comes along with drinking all the goddamn time. But this day, I was maybe a week in, and, I actually slept okay the night before, and I had the windows down and I had music on, and there was this cool like spring breeze. And it was sunny and it was beautiful. And I could, I was driving along the ocean essentially. And all of a sudden I'm like, this is so enjoyable. And it never dawned on me before I quit drinking that like a quiet, peaceful drive to work would be one of the benefits. But holy cow, is it? You know, and if I hadn't been focused on certain things, I could have completely missed it, right? So give yourself this opportunity. Look around at what's good. That's how, you know, one of the ways that you can see that not only are the things you want going to happen, but there are so many other things you didn't even think of that are massive positives, right? So that, friends, is it for the action phase, right? And how to get the most out of it. Don't look beyond the duration. Allow, don't resist. You're going to be okay, right? Be kind to yourself and look around for what's good. These are the things you can do to get the most out of your duration. And if you keep doing these, eventually you're going to get through this duration and you're going to have a changed perspective and you're going to be able to make a decision on what to do next. And that is what we're going to talk about in the next and final episode of this series, right? What do you do when you get to the end of your duration? How do you make the decision? And if you do decide to keep going, how do you build that next version of you, right? One of the things that I am deeply in love with about this process of letting go of alcohol. One of the things I'm so deeply in love with is the fact that it is a growth process. Like it is just it is about continuing to grow. One of the questions people will ask me regularly is like, oh, Scott, I made some massive changes here. Like, how do I keep the changes I've made? And one of the things I'll say is grow into a person who doesn't drink. Like when we first quit drinking, we're a person who used to drink. But like after a while and we grow more, we grow into that new version of you. And that new version of you doesn't drink. It's so exciting. And I cannot wait to talk about it. So that is it for me. As usual, you can reach out to scottpinyard.com/podcast. There's a form there to send me a note. You can also submit information or submit a request for a podcast topic. I will be back next week with the phase 4, the final episode in this series about the process. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you soon.
What